The movie begins with photographer Samuel documenting a group of people asleep on a bus. At first, no one knows what happened on the island. The only thing anyone knows is that these people have been asleep for 3 days. Some are sleeping in swimming pools, others inside churches, while many are asleep on buses, in hotels, and practically everywhere across the island. Doctors quickly arrive on the island and begin examining the victims to figure out what caused this mysterious condition. They discover that no one should be moved from the spot where they fell asleep because doing so would dangerously raise their blood pressure. Strangely, the phenomenon doesn't affect the doctors or anyone who arrives after the incident. It only affects the people who were already on the island when it began. As a result, the researchers decide to set up a camp there to investigate the mystery. The story then returns to Samuel, who secretly sneaks onto the island without anyone noticing because journalists are forbidden from entering. While exploring, he finds a bag containing a goldfish that belonged to an elderly woman sleeping on the bus. He decides to keep the fish with him for company during his stay. Samuel finds a house and walks inside, where he discovers a young woman named Stella asleep on the bed. He quietly enters another room and settles in there. Just before falling asleep, he hears researchers standing outside the house. Afraid they'll discover him and punish him, he quietly gets up, waits until they leave, and then goes back to sleep. While sleeping, he dreams that he meets Stella in a grocery store. He calls her by name, leaving her shocked. She asks how he knows her name, but before he can answer, he suddenly wakes up. He resumes his mission, heads to a church filled with sleeping people, starts filming them, then sits among them and accidentally falls asleep. Stella suddenly appears in his dream and asks if he came to the island just to make money. Samuel tells her he came to gain experience, uncover the truth, and hopefully earn recognition for his work in the future. She disappears, and he returns to the house, staring curiously at Stella as she sleeps. He notices her diary, and the moment he opens it, she appears again. That's when a strange connection begins to form between them. Samuel asks what it feels like to sleep all the time. Stella tells him she feels calm and peaceful, but most of the time it feels as though she's falling from a great height. She explains that everything started while she was at school. Her piano teacher suddenly fell asleep for no apparent reason, and shortly afterward, everyone in the classroom was affected. When she returned home, she fell asleep as well and hasn't truly awakened since. The following day, Samuel goes back to filming. As he approaches his car, he finds it filled with balloons and begins recording them. While doing so, he notices 2 researchers watching him from a high point. Realizing his cover has been blown, he rushes back to the house, packs his belongings, and heads toward the beach. However, he finds himself unable to leave the island because he can't bear the thought of leaving Stella behind. He has grown deeply attached to her, so he returns to the house once again. Every time Samuel falls asleep, Stella appears in his dreams, and they continue talking. One day she asks why he really came back to the island. He admits that he visited the island a year earlier for vacation and saw her at the grocery store. He followed her, but never had the courage to introduce himself. Then he confesses that he fell in love with her the very first moment he saw her. That's why he returned and couldn't bring himself to leave. He simply wanted the chance to know her better. After waking up, Samuel goes to the grocery store to buy supplies. When researchers enter the store, he pretends to be asleep, so they won't suspect anything. One of the researchers briefly checks on him before walking away without paying much attention. Once they're gone, Samuel gathers everything he needs, leaves money behind for the items, and returns to the house. He continues searching through Stella's belongings to learn more about her. He discovers an audio cassette and plays it, listening as Stella talks about herself. He learns that she loves unusual sounds, such as the voice of a Barbie doll, the clicking of a typewriter, the sound of boats, and even the sound of her own footsteps along the beach. Samuel memorizes all these details so he can impress her later and show how much he cares. He also discovers that one of her biggest dreams is taking a long road trip along the coast. He falls asleep again so he can see her in his dreams. When she appears, he tells her he knows about her dream and wants to make it come true. He grabs his car, but Stella suggests borrowing a sleeping person's car instead. Samuel refuses at first because he doesn't want to steal, but she reassures him they're only borrowing it and will return it afterward. They quietly take the keys from a sleeping man's house and head out on their dream road trip. Samuel is overjoyed because he has finally made Stella happy. Suddenly, he wakes up to find doctors and researchers inside the house conducting their weekly inspections. Panicked, he hides before anyone notices him. Once they finish and leave, he walks over to Stella, holds her hand, and falls asleep beside her on the floor. The next day, Samuel continues listening to Stella's recordings and discovers the thing she dislikes the most. Above all else, she hates being alone. She explains that she's always felt lonely, has no one to share her life with, and living by herself has always made her miserable. Samuel falls asleep once more so he can speak with her. He tells her he knows how much she hates loneliness and believes everyone deserves someone to share life with. He asks her to let him be that person. Stella gently rejects him, telling him it could never happen and that their relationship could never become what he hopes for. Heartbroken, Samuel feels that everything he has done has been meaningless. He believes he wasted his time chasing something impossible and decides to leave the island. Yet once again, he can't bring himself to abandon Stella. Instead, he returns to the house and prepares her favorite meal. During another dream, Stella urges him to leave the island and never come back. She explains that the Stella he came to know through her diary isn't the same as the real Stella, and he shouldn't fool himself into believing otherwise. Samuel can't stop thinking about her words. He wonders how someone he's never truly spoken to could possibly love him when he doesn't even know how she really feels. For the third time, he resolves to leave the island for good. Then something strange happens. No matter how much water he drinks, he remains unbearably thirsty. At the same time, he becomes overwhelmingly sleepy. That's when he realizes the island's water is the source of the mysterious illness and the reason everyone keeps falling asleep. Samuel returns to the house and begins writing detailed notes about everything he has experienced. Even though he constantly falls asleep against his will, he continues recording every new discovery each time he wakes up. After some time, Stella's body finally begins to move, and she wakes up after sleeping for 3 weeks. Her first instinct is to get a drink of water. As she looks around the house, she notices a second toothbrush and realizes someone else has been living there. She soon discovers Samuel's presence and becomes upset that he's searched through her diary, her personal belongings, and even listened to her private recordings. She repeatedly tries to wake him, but he doesn't respond. Then she reads the journal he left behind for her. As she reads his heartfelt words, she forgives him, realizing he had only been trying to help. He wrote that she was no longer alone and would never have to feel lonely again. In his journal, Samuel tells her everything he learned about her and explains that although he was once a complete stranger, he now feels deeply connected to her. Touched by his sincerity, Stella stays by his side, just as he stayed by hers. Their roles are reversed as she begins communicating with him through his dreams, learning everything about his life, including what he loves and what he dislikes. A short time later, Samuel finally wakes up. Stella is no longer lying in bed, so he searches the house until he finds her in the kitchen preparing his favorite meal. It's the first time they truly meet in real life, yet they both feel as though they've known each other for years because they already know almost everything about one another. Meanwhile, the elderly woman from whom Samuel took the goldfish also wakes up. It turns out she actually owned 2 goldfish, not just one. Soon afterward, the rest of the island's residents begin waking up one by one, bringing the mystery to an end. And that's how the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget that your opinion matters to us, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel.